Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to KSR's rapid reaction of Kentucky's 93-73 win over the Arkansas Razorback. Kentucky basketball goes 2-0 in Fayetteville over the weekend. We always love to hear that. John Calipari goes down to Arkansas, thinks the pastures are greener down there. Wasn't quite the case on Saturday, and then Kentucky, you know, really struggles without Tiani Key for really the whole month of January. And they come back, she comes back, gets a big win on the road to take down Arkansas. This is a game that, even if Tiani Key wasn't playing, this is a game where you just you had to win, right? Arkansas entered this one 0-7 in the SEC, 11-11 overall. And, for a team as good as Kentucky is, even with the, injury woes and all that, this is a game you really just couldn't lose. And Tiani Key comes back, and she looks absolutely phenomenal. That's the main takeaway for me personally. I'm sitting there watching this game, and, besides the big, ugly right elbow brace that she has to wear right now, she looked great, right? 15 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists in her first game back from injury. Really, a lot of those points, 5 of them came at the charity stripe. And, for Kentucky, it seemed like especially that second half, that third and fourth quarter, it just felt like each team was just punching each other in the face, and it was just a matter of, all right, who's going to get to the line? And, Arkansas had a 46-45 lead in the third quarter, right? And then all of a sudden, Kentucky flips this game on its head. And you sit and say to yourself, well, okay, we know Kentucky is the more talented team. And, it was just a matter of going out and getting the win. But Tiani Key looked absolutely great. We got Holly in the chat saying, thanks, Hogs, for the boost this week for the men's and women's team. Cats over Hogs. I mean, we needed this, right? For the men's side, it was a matter of, okay, we just got murdered, basically, at Vanderbilt. We were on a 5-game winning streak, just got murdered. Oh, God, we got to go play Cal at Arkansas, right? And that's, you're heading into that game kind of thinking, oh, boy, right? I'm pretty sure Nick Roush was the only KSR guy who had us winning that game. You pull that one out, right? And then you go into Sunday saying, okay, we've got Tiani Key back. We feel good, but it's been a rough go. Or is there going to be some rust with the 8-game break, or 8-day break, excuse me? And I actually think there was, that first quarter ended up being tied at 17 when the quarter ended. I think there was a bit of rust, right? It's always a matter of your coaches say rust versus rested, right? I think Kentucky was maybe a little rested, but they're definitely rusty too. But come out and get this big win. And as David in the chat says, Kentucky needed both of these wins. And, it just goes to show, we know this is a good team, right? You beat a team like Arkansas by 20. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Again, I think about when you go look at what Kentucky did with Tiani Key out, and you look at that stretch and say, well, he went 2-4, and it wasn't the greatest. You beat a Florida team at home, barely scraped by them, and it almost felt like that Oklahoma game, beating then number 5 Oklahoma, who just blew out South Carolina not that long ago in overtime. You're sitting there saying, well, was that like a fluke of a game? Was that home cooking for Kentucky? What happened? But I think the point still stands. That Tennessee game was close, right? Kentucky had a second half lead on Mississippi State, let that one get out of hand. It's just a matter of, Georgia, right? The last game, Kentucky had a late lead and kind of lost it there too. This is a good basketball team, right? They are ranked as high as number 6. I don't know if Kentucky's a top 10 team, right? I don't know. But what I do know is game in and game out. As we've seen, they can lose some games, right? They can lose to a Georgia who is actually better this year. They can be down in the third quarter against 0-7 in the SEC Arkansas. But they can also go on the road and beat an LSU team who just blew out Alabama by 40. They can go beat an Oklahoma team who beat South Carolina by double digits, right? Kentucky is a good basketball team, and this is the momentum you needed to get back into the track of, I don't know if Kentucky is at this point right now, Kentucky's not really a contender to win the SEC. You don't have to be right now, okay? What you need to be is putting yourself in the best position possible to go make a run in the SEC tournament and then, of course, March Madness, right? I don't even know if Kentucky will even have a double bye right now in the SEC tournament. But again, this is like I talked about on the podcast, and I think I've said this on a rapid reaction before, where, okay, you figure Tiani Key, I think I may even said it after the Georgia game when Kenny made it pretty clear that, she was going to come back. Tiani was. This month is really just a matter of from February 1st to March 1st. Can you just get back to what you were before Tiani got hurt? Can you just get back on track? We got Zotoria saying, I think this team needed time to learn the Pope offense. It looked immaculate versus Purdue. Yeah, they believe, yeah. This is actually for the women's basketball win, believe it or not. I was also kind of like halfway confused when I was looking at the schedules. I'm sitting there looking like, hey, why are we playing on a Sunday? Like talking about the men's game. Why are we playing on a Sunday? I'm like, oh, that's the women's game. Oh, okay. But again, just a really massive win for Kentucky. Again, Arkansas is a team that you look at on the schedule before the season starts and you're going, okay, we need to win that game. We're good. But, you get to this point in the season and how things go, it's just a matter of, eventually pulling it out. And it's hard to really sit here and talk about the biggest picture takeaways because, again, you needed to win this game, but Tiani Key looked good. Clara Strack, who I don't even really think I've even hit on somehow yet, had a career-high 33 points, 13 of 20 shooting, went just 6 of 11 from the free throw line. It seems like Kentucky, they were getting put at the line a lot. Just kind of struggled to hit their free throws. Went just 19 of 30 today. That actually is a number that looks better than I actually thought it ended up being. But 33 points, 15 rebounds, 2 steals for her. Amelia Hassett, who to kind of begin the game, and of course we've seen this narrative play out really all season, you're kind of just wondering to yourself, like, is Clara Strack, or not Clara Strack, excuse me, is Amelia Hassett, like, is she going to really get this going? Like, she would have a game here and there where she would do good and she would produce. But could she, get this under wraps consistently? And I don't know if we'll even see that through this month, but we at least got one of those here and there games today from her. 16 points, 5 of 10 shooting, 7 rebounds. This was a good game on the boards for Kentucky. Of course, you had 2 players in double figures, and as a team, brought in 51 rebounds. Kentucky out-rebounded Arkansas 51-24, and then 18-4 on the offensive glass. So it's just very clear to me. You can see where Tiani Key was missed. You could see where, excuse me, you could see where, it's more than just the 15 points, 10 rebounds. That's obviously big. But on the defensive end, she's so long. She's, I think, pretty fairly to say one of the most, if not the most athletic players on the team, right? I think that's a big criticism you can have about this team is like, well, I don't think they're super athletic. Tiani Key is 100% very athletic. I like this comment right here that Clara Strack is going to be the best player in the country before she graduates. And that's a really stacked class that she's in. That junior class is going to end up being a really good one. I wrote a story about Clara Strack and Tiani Key, kind of just what WNBA folks thought about them when they were talking about Clara Strack. I actually wrote that article about Tony and Tiani, but I did intervene and ask about Clara Strack as well, and they're like, dude, that class is going to be great. So just a matter of her keeping things going, but, 6'5", and, she went just, 1 of 4 from 3 today. Excuse me, 1 of 4 from 3. And, she's not going to be a sniper ever from deep, but she can stretch the floor. Like, she is someone that you kind of have to look out for. But yeah, there's not really, again, a ton to say outside of the fact that Kentucky won, right? You needed this win. Thursday, Kentucky plays a Vanderbilt team who is currently ranked number 5 in the country. I would imagine that won't remain the case. They've lost their last 2 games against South Carolina and Ole Miss. But, Vanderbilt has, they earned that number 5 spot. They started the year 20-0, right? So it'll be interesting. It's a big night on Thursday. You'll see more of what that actually means early this week. But look, I think we all need to be happy, right? I was on KS Board in the game thread, and I was talking about how, I think it was maybe late second, third quarter, I don't know. And I was like, hey, we don't have to win by 20 plus points. Like at this point, it's like a one possession ball game. And I'm saying we don't have to win by 20. I just want us to win convincingly. I just want it to be like, okay, Kentucky went out and actually won that game. And that's what they did. So Kentucky gets the 93-73 win over Arkansas. It's been an 8-day break between games. We're going to get back on our kind of regular schedule. Got an episode of the podcast coming up early for you next week, most likely on Tuesday. We got Kentucky Rick in the chat saying Vandy, Texas A&M, Ole Miss Vandy. Again, there are no easy wins from here on out. And that's the thing about SEC play. There are no easy wins. But, I think it was in the preseason, maybe SEC Media Day, where Kenny Brooks talked about, the SEC got a lot better this year heading into the season. But, hey, we're looking forward to being one of those teams. So, Cats get the 20-point win. Tiani Key gets a double-double in her return, and Clara Strack has a career day. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this edition of a KSR Rapid Reaction. If you've enjoyed, like, comment, subscribe, and do all those wonderful things. I believe my man Stephen Peak is somewhere on the way back from Fayetteville listening to this. Hopefully he is. Hopefully he enjoyed it, because maybe he'll subscribe. Does Stephen subscribe? Do we know? Who knows? But, help us get to that next checkpoint. Help us get to the next milestone. We appreciate it. Thank you all so much for your support. As always, Cats win by 20, 93-73. I will see you all next time. Peace out. Go Cats.